Ever wondered what would happen if a Chinese spy ship stalked an American aircraft carrier like a creepy ex-boyfriend? No? You haven't ever wondered about that? Well, given that we're basically living in a second Cold War, it's safe to say that a lot of interesting things would happen if an incident like this occurred. Would this be a no biggie? Or would this ignite World War III? Keep watching this video to find out. In essence, spy ships are naval vessels equipped with sophisticated electronic and signal intelligence equipment, like electronic intelligence devices capable of intercepting information derived primarily from electronic signals that do not contain speech or text. And they're also equipped with signals intelligence derived from electronic signals and systems used by foreign targets, such as communication systems, radars, and weapon systems. The intelligence gathered by these ships can spill the beans on what potential adversaries are capable of, what they're up to, and what mischief they might be planning. They have a nickname which is AGI, short term for Auxiliary General Intelligence. So every time you hear us say AGI, you should know what we're talking about. Also, AGI can mean Artificial General Intelligence, which is another topic. So don't get confused with the acronym, please. China has been cooking this new technology for a while now, in the aim of creating the best ships ever that can spy on any navy. You got the Xiang Yang Hong, a sophisticated class of ships designed to swallow any information that gets passed through its surveillance equipment. The Chinese government says that this class of ships are innocent, as they were built only for oceanographic survey and research. Recently, reports said that one of these ships anchored 600 miles west of Andaman Islands in the middle of the Bengal Bay, located in India. The area was located to be within international waters. We all know that both of these neighbors are not necessarily best friends. So when a supposed AGI ship was in India's backwater, the Indian Navy kept close monitoring of this vessel. The spy ship claimed that they were conducting trials of high-endurance, autonomous underwater vehicles, which can stay at the depths of the ocean bed and collect oceanographic data for future submarine operations. Granted, no action against these vessels as they were operating on international water. But forget this! What if a Chinese spy ship got too close to an American aircraft carrier? Would this result in a catastrophe? When an unknown ship pops up out of nowhere on the many radar systems that American aircraft carriers have, like the radar systems that can be found on the Gerald R. Ford carrier for example, the crew members on board immediately would jump into action, faster than a cat spotting a laser pointer. In order to eliminate any potential threats and keep the multi-billion-dollar vessels safe, there is a crucial need for quick, decisive action. You won't believe the few real incidents of spy ships getting caught spying on American aircraft carriers, which we will show you later on in this video. The United States Navy spends years training its crew members, including sailors, pilots, and officers, to expertly handle such difficult situations. Like we said earlier, a Chinese spy ship is not like your ordinary fish hunting ship. These vessels' characteristics are basically hidden from the public, as they are equipped with advanced technology designed to eavesdrop on communications, track movements, and gather sensitive information about military operations. So in essence, they're really hard to identify and track AGI ships, especially those lurking from afar, unless of course they get really close to the aircraft carrier. Once they get really close, the crew knows it's time to stop playing hide and seek and get serious. The first step for the crew to handle a sketchy situation like this is to ascertain the identity of the approaching ship. Is it a bird? Is it a plane? No! It's a Chinese spy ship that wants to steal intel. To try and figure out who are the gigachads operating an unknown vessel close to an American floating base, the crew members might use some good old binoculars. Yes, with this tactic, they can simply look at the movement of the ship and maybe try to establish contact to determine its intentions. Simultaneously, the captain receives an urgent alert and promptly initiates a comprehensive assessment of the evolving situation. This comprehensive assessment involves the captain of the aircraft carrier to gather all available intelligence as much as possible about the ship's origins, its movement, and its intentions, whether it is hostile or not. And after gathering this valuable data, the captain simply consults his senior officers to form a cohesive response strategy. Imagine being on the bridge of a US aircraft carrier and all of a sudden you see a Chinese spy ship. No need to panic here, as there are a few basic rules to follow in the situation. These rules lie in balancing three crucial things: maintaining professionalism, upholding freedom of navigation, and avoiding escalation. Their first line of defense is clear and concise communication. U.S. Navy Air Base vessels are equipped with advanced communication systems, allowing them to establish contact with the nearby Chinese spy ship. This initial contact serves multiple purposes. It establishes the U.S. presence, clarifies their intentions, and opens a channel for dialogue. This dialogue might be awkward because the Chinese spy ship is closely creeping on the American aircraft carrier, but the U.S. Navy has to address the elephant in the room, nonetheless, and confront the unknown ship before taking armed measures. The message from the U.S. Navy is typically straightforward. This is a U.S. Navy vessel conducting routine operations in international waters. We request that you maintain a safe distance. This clear communication helps to avoid any misunderstandings and potential miscalculations that could lead to a more serious incident, like starting a small war between two global superpowers that could end with the destruction of the entire world. The U.S. Navy prioritizes safety at all times, and international regulations establish guidelines for safe separation distances between vessels at sea. U.S. Navy aircraft carriers will maintain a safe and professional distance from the Chinese spy ship, ensuring there is no risk of collision or accidental entanglement. This allows both vessels to continue their lawful activities without unnecessary hindrance. If the spy ship continues to shamelessly lurk and move further to a closer distance to the ship, its potentially hostile intentions become more apparent. As a result, this could prompt all of the crew on board the targeted American aircraft carrier to implement a series of robust defensive measures to safeguard both the carrier and its personnel. Don't worry, the United States would never start firing at other country ships, right? Right? Anyway, these defensive actions that we mentioned include deploying physical barriers, such as floating booms, or other obstacles that look like this, to prevent the spy ship from ever approaching too closely. In addition to this, the crew would employ sophisticated electronic warfare tactics designed to disrupt the spy ship's surveillance and communication equipment. This complex process involves jamming signals, creating various forms of electronic interference, and using advanced counter-surveillance techniques to obscure the carrier's own communications and movements. Throughout this tense encounter, the crew stays on high alert, watching the spy ship's every move like hawks, eyeing a mouse. They meticulously monitor the spy ship's actions and adapt their strategies and protocols to maintain the upper hand. The ultimate goal from all of this is to ensure that the aircraft carrier's operations remain secure and undisclosed. You can't really give out sensitive information to your adversaries just like that. When things get tense out at sea, following the rules is key. The crew in this situation should stick to their rules of engagement by only responding to threats in a way that's fair and in self-defense. This is done to avoid any necessary escalations. The U.S. Navy understands the potential for heightened tensions in such encounters. To promote de-escalation, they may even choose to publicly acknowledge the presence of a Chinese spy ship through official press releases or social media statements. This transparency, while it may create a short-term hysteria on Twitter, it allows for better public perception and discourages misinformation that could escalate tensions. The U.S. Navy doesn't operate in isolation. When encountering a Chinese spy ship while sailing with allied vessels, communication and collaboration become even more important. Maintaining professionalism in the face of potential intimidation requires constant vigilance and a high degree of discipline. The presence of a Chinese spy ship may be seen as a deliberate attempt to disrupt Navy operations or gather sensitive intelligence. But U.S. Navy personnel are trained to remain calm, collected, and focused on their mission objectives. Responding with anger, frustration, or erratic maneuvers would only serve to escalate the situation. Professionalism, on the other hand, sends a clear message that the U.S. Navy is not easily intimidated and will not be deterred from carrying out its lawful activities. Of course, this is all on paper, but in reality, we all know this has its limitations. I mean, look at this article headline right here. Months ago, apparently, the U.S. Navy sent a ship that entered illegally in the South China Sea. But anyways, we don't have to talk about American foreign affairs and how messy they can be, right? You can watch Johnny Harris for that stuff. Anyways, to continue what we were talking about, the presence of the Chinese spy ship near an American aircraft carrier would also have implications for ongoing military and intelligence strategies. The U.S. might reassess its deployment patterns, considering the potential need for increased vigilance and counter-surveillance measures in regions where Chinese naval activity is prevalent. This could lead to adjustments in the development of carrier strike groups, prioritizing areas of strategic importance, and enhancing coordination with allied naval forces. On a broader scale, in the long term, a acute incident like this could influence defense policy and procurement decisions. The United States Navy might accelerate the development and deployment of advanced surveillance and counter-surveillance technologies that aim to maintain a technological edge over potential adversaries. Similarly, China could intensify its efforts to enhance its naval capabilities, focusing on expanding its intelligence gathering operations and improving its ability to operate in contested environments. International waters have become a focal point of tension, particularly with the presence of Chinese spy ships near American aircraft carriers. These waters are governed by international law, which permits free navigation beyond the territorial seas of any nation. They're like a big open community pool for ships of all kinds. However, the proximity of Chinese surveillance vessels to U.S. carriers has raised concerns about espionage and maritime security. These Chinese ships, often shadowing American naval movements, aim to gather intelligence on the capabilities and operations of U.S. forces. Believe it or not, the incidents where Chinese AGI spy ships getting very close to United States Navy-owned aircraft carriers do actually happen from time to time. In June 2016, a notable incident occurred involving a Chinese ship shadowing a U.S. aircraft carrier, the USS John C. Stennis, in the Western Pacific. This episode was part of a larger pattern of strategic maneuvering in the Asia-Pacific region, reflecting the complex dynamics between these two major naval powers. The USS John C. Stennis was en route, just chilling, minding its own business, in the goal of participating in the annual Malabar maritime exercises alongside warships from Japan and India. These exercises are designed to enhance interoperability among the participating navies and to promote regional security and stability. As the Stennis navigated through the Western Pacific, it was shadowed by a Chinese spy ship. This was a clear indication of China's keen interest in the activities and capabilities of its regional competitor, and the United States. Thanks to the U.S. Navy's modern cutting-edge surveillance and counter-surveillance technology, the Chinese ship was spotted early. The crew of the Stennis and its accompanying strike group intensified their monitoring effort, utilizing a combination of radar, sonar, and electronic warfare capabilities to track the Chinese vessel's movements and to mitigate any potential intelligence gathering efforts. This shadowing maneuver by the Chinese vessel was a calculated move. You see, the Chinese government as a whole is trying to assert its presence and dominance like an alpha. They want to be the next big dog, especially when it comes to naval warfare. And to do that, they know very well that they have to keep a close watch on the naval operations of other major powers in the region. The Chinese Navy, or People's Liberation Army Navy, or PLAN, has increasingly engaged in such shadowing activities, reflecting its growing maritime ambitions and its desire to project power beyond its immediate coastal waters. Long story short, this incident prompted a diplomatic response from the United States officials who expressed their concerns through appropriate diplomatic channels, emphasizing the need for safe and professional conduct at sea. The U.S. maintained that the shadowing, while not very uncommon, needed to comply with established norms of maritime behavior to avoid misunderstandings or accidental escalations. In another notable incident also involving an American aircraft carrier being spied on by the PLAN, the USS Ronald Reagan carrier was conducting routine operations in international waters when the Chinese surveillance vessel, identified as a Type 815 class electronic reconnaissance ship, began to tail it. This encounter occurred within the context of heightened military activity in the region, where China's assertive territorial claims often clash with international principles of freedom of navigation. The Chinese spy ship maneuvered within close proximity to the aircraft carrier, attempting to gather intelligence on its operational capabilities, communications, and maneuvers. Unsurprisingly, the presence of the Chinese vessel raised alarms, prompting the Ronald Reagan's crew to implement counter-surveillance measures to protect sensitive information. And did you know that the Chinese Navy also spied on a Nimitz-class aircraft carrier in the past? The USS Harry S. Truman found itself under the watchful eye of a Chinese spy ship. This close monitoring by the Chinese ship aimed to gather intelligence on the Truman's capabilities, including its communication systems and tactical maneuvers. The crew on board the Truman perfectly implemented all of the protocols we talked about earlier in this video. In another incident also in July 2014, a Chinese spy ship was spotted at a US-led naval exercise off the coast of Hawaii. China had dispatched 4 ships carrying approximately 1,000 sailors to participate in the Rim of the Pacific operation. This marked the first time the Chinese Navy had been included in the drill, alongside 22 other nations. The U.S. acknowledged that this was the first instance of a participating country also sending a vessel to awkwardly monitor the exercise. Captain Darren James, the chief spokesman for the U.S. Pacific Fleet, informed agencies that China had dispatched a similar ship during the previous RIMPAC exercise in 2012. He assured that the U.S. had taken all necessary precautions to protect our critical information during the operation. However, the presence of the Chinese surveillance ship drew criticism from some U.S.-based media outlets. The Wall Street Journal labeled it a party crasher, taking advantage of an intelligent buffet at the world's largest maritime gathering. Bloomberg quoted an analyst who suggested that the move sent a bad signal, indicating tension and mistrust between the participating nations. This incident came on the heels of a near collision in December 2013 between U.S. and Chinese ships in the South China Sea. The U.S. reported that its guided missile cruiser USS Cowpens had to take evasive action to avoid a collision, while Chinese media claimed that the U.S. vessel had been harassing China's new aircraft carrier, the Liaoning, during the sea trials. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is why the maritime relationship between China and the USA is as unstable as my home Wi-Fi connection. Even recently, in April 2024, U.S., Philippine, and French amphibious ships and frigates attracted the attention of Chinese surveillance ships and surface combatants as they sailed out of Philippine territorial waters into the disputed waters of the South China Sea. While there were no American aircraft carriers on site, this story is still relevant to our topic of how China spies on U.S. ships because of how recent it is. This event occurred during Manila's largest annual military exercise, highlighting the ongoing tensions in the region. On their way to the planned exercise areas in the South China Sea, the ships initially sailed through Philippine archipelagic waters in the Sulu Sea. After an uneventful day at sea, two planned spy ships had a plan to ruin everyone's cool and calm demeanor, as they were quickly spotted shadowing the multinational formation. The Chinese surveillance ship Tianguanjing sailed within 2 nautical miles of the USS Harper's Ferry, disrupting a live fire drill with crew-served weapons. These close-call incidents serve a powerful purpose. They exemplify the delicate balance of power and the continuous complex interactions that characterize modern naval operations in these critical international waters. If you found this video entertaining, please consider leaving a like on it and subscribe to the channel.